Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here, and I think that for the most part, unless something huge breaks, this is probably going to be one of my last videos on these recent tragedies and mass shootings. Again, if other pertinent information comes out, I'm going to talk about it, but at the same time, I think I've really covered, especially the Dayton shooting, at length. In other words, if we get more confirmation of, say, psychotropic drugs, there may be something I do on that. But for the most part, I think I've really been vindicated, especially in the Dayton, Ohio case, in that this is absolutely 100% a real event, a non-political event, an event of psychosis, an event now that we know was perpetrated by somebody who also was flagged all over the place, had a kill and rape list, was suspended from the school for a year. Everybody knew who he was. Everybody knew he was a problem, etc., etc. It goes on and on. And yes, he, like Nicholas Cruz, was also a part of the JROTC program. And from eyewitnesses in both that took class with him, yes, they were trained in firearms, no matter what those arms were. I'm getting a lot of pushback on that, like I'm trying to bash the military or the JROTC program. I'll say this. I don't like that somebody who displayed the mental illness of both the shooter in Dayton and Parkland were allowed to attend those programs. I think that's a huge misstep. I think that's a problem. And again, all the red flags were there in both those cases, 100%. So, with that being said, there's a new article out there about, Rocco's saying that he was a Satanist, right? One of the eyewitnesses who was targeted on the rape list and worked with him said that she heard him chanting things about Satanism in a break room and was very frightened. So that is a report out of the Daily Mail. We covered that at length yesterday. Again, that's the same article where we found out that he'd been suspended from the school for a year. In his sophomore year, he threatened to shoot the entire place up. 1/3 of the school was so frightened of him, they didn't show up when he was returned. Nobody was told when he would return. He was sending threatening texts to girls who were on that list. And it goes on and on and on. And this next article, if true, and it has all the earmarks of being true, there's a young woman named Adelia Johnson who has put out an article on Medium saying that she dated this guy in one of the most toxic types of relationships I've ever heard. But so much of it rang true with me on the fact that this was not politically motivated. This guy was not a Republican. He killed indiscriminately. He was a psychopath. He had mental illness. She knew it. She had mental illness. In this article, she said he had twice put a gun in his mouth, that this was the way he wanted to go out. Okay? And with that being said, I'm going to read this article. Again, I can't confirm it, but it's on Medium. She's on Twitter. You can go follow her if you like. Her name is Adelia Johnson. So let's get into it. Oh, my ex-boyfriend was the Dayton shooter. Now, I wouldn't even call him an ex-boyfriend because, as you're going to find out right away, she's in a polyamorous relationship where she's the fiance of somebody else. Okay? Now, I just don't know how that works. To each his own. I'm very libertarian. Even in Utah, where the Mormons are into it, look, I just feel like if you're truly going to commit to somebody and not manipulate them, especially mentally and sexually, you're going to commit to them. And if you can't, I understand why you don't want to get married. I'm a 40-year-old man. I've yet to be married. I don't want to be divorced. I'd like to have a family, but it's scary out there. Someone's telling me, Alex Chavez in the super chat, thank you for that, is telling me there's another active shooter in Baton Rouge Walmart. Well, that's a scary situation. We'll have to get back to that later because we're going to read this. And again, this is going to confirm a long history of mental illness. This is going to confirm that there's no way that I don't think he could have not been medicated at this point. The medications that he was on are really the only mysteries after you hear this. And it starts off with something about conspiracy theories, which kind of bothered me, but it doesn't elaborate a lot in. So let's go. Connor and I met in our social psychology class at Sinclair College. We bonded over the laughable conspiracy theories that our professor tried to preach as we walked to similar parking spots in the college parking garage. Doesn't go much into that. We also were very open about our mental illnesses from the very beginning. He told me that he had a bipolar disorder and possibly OCD. Much worse than that. Give me a break. This guy was obsessed with death almost his entire pubescent to adult life, period, by all accounts. And it's in this, you're going to find out that, this was a sick puppy. That didn't scare me. Some of the sweetest people I know have these conditions. I told him that I have depression, generalized anxiety, and ADD. We bonded over depression humor, something that only people who have been in the throes of it really ever understand and find humorous, aka dark stuff. Joking about personal mental illness is one of the biggest coping tools in the mental health tool belt. So when he started joking about his dark thoughts, I understood. Dark thoughts for someone with mental illness are just a symptom that we have to learn how to manage. Joking about wanting to hurt people was just heard as, I have uncomfortable thoughts that are inappropriate to express, but I need to joke about them. Otherwise, they're too scary and real. So that to me is just scary and real, and you got to realize this is being written by an admitted mentally ill person. Just throwing that out there. People who do not have mental illness do not understand the sense of humor. They take it too far, but I didn't, so he trusted me. No, people with common sense distance themselves from psychopaths who tell you who they are. And this person told everybody who he was. He told everybody. He trusted with so much of his darkness that I forgot most of it. Another thing between mentally ill friends, the capacity to forget things can be a blessing if the person is telling you something in confidence. Forgetfulness equals trust. So when people try to get mad about our gaps in memory, then they don't understand why Connor would have trusted me with his secrets in the first place. So March of this year, okay, Connor and I kept our relationship on the down low due to the polyamorous nature of it. So not many people knew because he was kind of my side piece in a weird relationship that couldn't have actually been healthy for this guy. Okay, I want to point that out right away. If you're comfortable being somebody else's secondary, I mean, step up to the game. I don't know how I would ever be comfortable like that. Not in something that's supposed to be some kind of a committed relationship. It's how I feel about it. I was engaged to another man while dating Connor, so I don't even know what that means, dating. And all parties involved knew about the situation. Everything was consensual. Even it was a bit of an adjustment. Connor didn't know that when I first asked him out for coffee, though. He didn't drink coffee, so we went out for drinks that night instead. So in other words, I am the person that approached this person and showed interest, and then we went out to the bar. And since I'm mentally ill, I was gravitated towards this person. There's a lot of subtext in this article, in my opinion. We went to the bar Louie at the Green Town Center in Beaver Creek, Ohio. To our surprise, there was a red light, green light party going on. For those not hip to the youngins' culture, it's a party where people wear glow bracelets, red for stop, yellow for it's complicated, and green for single and ready to mingle. He initiated me to my first gin and tonic. Now, notice right there, she doesn't reveal what bracelet she put on, whether she was being deceptive to this guy at this point. And it seems like later on she kind of reveals it, but she doesn't tell you which bracelet she put on. I'm sure he put on the green one, thinking this is my big score, and I bet she did too. Single and ready to mingle. It's not said in here, though. He initiated me to my first gin and tonic, and having anxiety, I sucked the puppy down fast. Throughout the night, he mingled with strangers, charming them with his big smile, baby blues, and intellect. I had more fun than I had in a while, being with someone so outgoing and electric. The guy was also a frontman for some weird metal band. She'll tell you that as well. We ended up getting into a political debate with a Republican. So right there you find out he's not a Republican. He doesn't fit this narrative as an obsessed Trumpite, white supremacist, conservative conspiracy theorist that's going to go off the handle. This is why that Dayton is going to fall to the wayside. Okay, I'm just letting you know. Connor really knew his stuff and was impressed when I knew mine. Looking back on the debate was one of my favorite memories. So I guess the guy wasn't afraid to at least engage people in conversation. It wasn't that type of... I don't even know that he was really an introvert. But I do see psychopath written all over him. A couple drinks later, Connor asked me if I saw the video of the synagogue shooting. So right here, red flags. We're at our first encounter. We're at a bar. And he brings up a mass shooting and wants to show you a video of it. I get it. You're a mentally ill girl in a relationship with another man and blah, 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 blah. But none of this sounds healthy to me. Do you get it? As someone who makes a point to never watch those videos, I hadn't. So he pulled out his phone, and I was too drunk to care what I was watching. Gross. Thankfully, the bar was too loud for me to hear what was going on. Connor gave me a play-by-play of what was happening. Even then, I didn't realize that was a weird thing for a first date, but not too weird given the context of our class. No. It was fucking weird. 100%. More than weird. Dangerous. This is how he's introducing himself to you, with video of mass murder. In our psychology class, we regularly got off topic to talk about serial killers. Ted Bundy was a hot topic, given the media attention he was getting, the Netflix thing. A psychology student being fascinated in the horrors of humans is not an abnormal thing. It weirded me out because it was definitely not my focus on psychology, but it wasn't a weird thing in general. No, it was. You're mentally ill, and you're admittedly mentally ill. By the end of the night, I was trashed from accidentally drinking too much from anxiety. So again, she's like setting up a lot of excuses here, and I get that mentally ill people do that, but again, you got to own your behavior. He seemed way soberer than I was, so we left my truck and at the parking garage, and he drove me home. On the way, I asked if it was a date. So again, she's the one kind of pursuing this as romantic. He asked what I wanted it to be. I told him that I asked him first. There was a pause. This is when I told him, apparently, I wanted to be a date and explained that I was polyamorous. So again, she never tells you what her little wrist bracelet was. She leads this guy on. And later on, again, he gets a little more aggressive and wants to know information about the other relationship, as anybody who is in a relationship with a person would want to know if there's rivalry, because that's what it leads to, because that's natural. Just saying. Oh, he smiled and he said it was a date then. We got on out to my apartment. He walked me up. We lingered outside my door. I told him I wanted to kiss him, but I wanted to kiss him sober. He chuckled and said that was sweet, and we left it at that. He was a perfect gentleman throughout our relationship. He never pushed me to do things I didn't want to do. His biggest concern was that I was comfortable. Polyamory is confusing for everyone involved, but luckily, he and my fiance at the time were both understanding and consenting, meaning, in my opinion, guys, I'm a manipulative bitch that was controlling two beta men that desperately wanted to be with me but didn't have enough self-confidence to find somebody that actually believed in them. All right? Talk about mentally ill. That's what this is to me. Our relationship mostly consisted of us going out drinking and talking about our mental illnesses and him telling me about world tragedies and me talking about TV shows. There were a couple of moments, though, that stuck out to me. March of April of 2019, okay? There was one night in March or April that he called me. He was out in Illinois playing a gig with his metal band, Menstrual Munchies, and he got super drunk. Most of the time, I couldn't understand what he was saying. Connor was naturally a mumbler with a low voice, but he then, to add to the drunk slurring on top, definitely made it to struggle to understand him. I did catch bits and pieces among the topic, jumping that he wanted to hurt a lot of people. Okay? Hurt a lot of people. This is about 4 months ago, or 4 or 5 months ago, tops. Okay? He didn't have any specific plans. I wrote it off as being sad, drunk, a sad, drunk man who was afflicted with unchecked symptoms of mental illness. See, everything's a mental illness excuse? No. The guy's getting more and more depressed because you're with another dude and he wants to be with you. Under normal sober circumstances, I didn't believe he would feel like that. Well, that's because you're mentally ill and you have blind spots. May 2019, the next red flag was the letter. Now, in the video I did yesterday, I want to point out that one of the girls on the rape list was getting text messages by this psychopath. Now, this wasn't a girl that had a romantic relationship with him ever. And remember, he was suspended from the school for a year, and when he came back, they didn't tell anybody, and a third of the students stopped going there. Yet somehow, At some point in high school, he was a member of the junior ROTC program where they teach you military firearms training, period. They do it. And whether it's with a BB gun or an airsoft gun, et cetera, they have you hold the weapon. And one of the people said that he seemed more at peace when he was doing that. We got away from his problems. All right? And by the way, guns are going to make their way into this piece. All right? We had plans to go grab lunch one day, and he asked if he could drop off a letter to one of his friends that had just moved into town. I said, sure, that's sweet. When we drove by the house, though, there was someone working in the yard outside. He pouted and said he wanted the letter to be a surprise. This is a psychopath. So I suggested that we come back after lunch, and that's where what we did. Sure enough, there was still someone outside. I told him to just deliver it anyway, but he got frustrated. When I pushed the subject further, he told me that that was an ex-girlfriend's house and that he had found through a picture on her Facebook. So now this guy Facebooked, stalked some girl to find her address to posture in front of his current not girlfriend. That's what this is. You know, he wants her to know there's been other women in her life, but then he also wants to know that he's a psychopath. Then I asked to read the letter. I don't remember the exact words, but it was something to the effect, "Welcome to the neighborhood. You can't outrun your past. Signed, your neighbor." I asked him about that, about if he knew how messed up that was. He tried to downplay. Oh, it's a joke. I'm not a psychopath. No, you're a psychopath. But I knew it wasn't. So now you're starting to get the bad vibe. So I pushed further. He admitted that sometimes he got uncontrollable urges to do things. The only other example of those urges that I remember is burning down an abandoned building with his friends. So this guy also is an arsonist, apparently. Had the firebug. He told me that he always felt terrible afterward. Oh, yes, so remorseful that he ends up committing an act like this, by the way. And I'm telling you guys, there's no way he wasn't on medications after you read something like this, right? We're only going to find out he was on meds. What meds? I took that opportunity to try and show him a coping method. We pulled into a parking lot, jammed the letter into a hole under a parking block, and lit the letter on fire, watching it to make sure pieces didn't fly off. Sorry, that hippie nonsense doesn't work. All these coping methods. Get your shit together, honey. I knew then that I had to break things off with him. Really? That was it. That's what triggered it, huh? But I waited a few days to cool off. Yeah, you wouldn't want the psycho snapping on you. I wanted to wait until my fiance got back from a work trip. But then Connor started asking inappropriate questions. Now, are these really inappropriate questions, or are what somebody would do, again, if they were in a relationship against a rival, which is what you created? Because polyamory is nonsense. Okay? Here it is. He texted me to ask how often my fiance and I had sex, to which I told him I wasn't comfortable responding. Now, think about that. Now, when you're, I don't know, maybe on the end of a relationship and somebody's trying to make their way in, I think it's happened to the majority of us as adults and even teenagers, et cetera, et cetera. Questions like that are asked. But we're in this weird mentally ill world where this woman or girl or whatever you want to call her is herself a manipulator, I promise you. Okay? There's no way around that. With a couple of betas. Then he asked if I ever thought about killing myself. Now, we had spoken about suicide before. He knew that I had. This felt like he was trying to play mind games with me. Really? No kidding. No kidding. In the gentlest way I could, I told him that I didn't think he was ready for a relationship in the mental state that he was in. He needed to do more work on himself and find more coping mechanisms, so he didn't become so dependent on other people. I didn't have an emotional capacity to be his therapist, and that wasn't my job. I just wanted to be his girlfriend, and it was clear that he was not in a position that was possible. No, you didn't want to be his girlfriend. No, you didn't. You wanted to have power over another mentally ill man. I'm sick of that. You would want to be his girlfriend. No. No, 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 no. He texted back a snarky reply to the effect, "I hope you find peace and never have to stress about anything again." Honestly, it was a better reply than I was anticipating. I then reached out to his mother to tell her what happened. I wanted him to be safe, and I didn't know if he would tell her. I didn't want this breakup to be a catalyst for unsafe behavior. See, she knew. All the trigger signs were there that this is a terrible, terrible person. Okay? But given that the breakup happened through text, that wasn't a good gauge of how I was feeling. Let's get that right out of there. August to present day, 2-ish months later, and the shooting happens. As someone who was in Orlando when Pulse happened, the news of the shooting didn't hit me as hard as it should have. Then I got a text from my old classmates from the class Connor and I shared. She asked if Connor was the shooter. I thought, what a weird question to ask. Yeah, okay, come on. Then my boyfriend Googled it. They had released the shooter's name, and the name was Connor Betts. Everything just stopped. I went numb. Then I started crying, and I still didn't have any feelings. I grabbed my phone. I needed answers. Google. It couldn't have been Connor. Connor Betts isn't a popular name, but it couldn't have been him. It was. My ex-boyfriend was a mass murderer. I still don't know how to wrap my head around that. That man who was so sweet to me and told me that he loved me was a mass murderer. I kissed a mass murderer. Probably did a lot more than that with him, right? I thought I had a decent judgment and character, or maybe she didn't. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe you also sexually manipulated the guy on top of it. I have no idea what ludicrous kind of nonsense went on in this relationship. I thought I had a decent judgment of character. No, you don't. But now I feel like my entire psyche needs to be scoped out and reevaluated under a microscope. Damn straight it does. You're a nutball. 100%. 100%. I'm sorry, girl. You're crazy. I am beyond thankful that I have such wonderful therapists to help me through this. And then I found out about his sister. He liked his sister. Why would he kill his sister? He didn't like his parents. But that could have been the cause. He was drunk at a bar and too impulsive for that to have been the cause. I have no idea what his motivation was. I will never know. But there are a few things that I'm certain it wasn't. This was not a hate crime. I agree with her here. He fought for equality, whatever that means, okay? This wasn't a crime of passion. He didn't get passionate enough. This wasn't very premeditated. He wasn't a thorough planner. I would disagree with that. It was premeditated enough for him to have body armor and an assault, an AR-15. Let's say it like that. I also know that he was his getting shot is exactly what he wanted. This is how he wanted to go out. He would have been the first one to tell you that he hated himself. He told me that twice. He held a gun in his mouth ready to pull the trigger. He knew that he shouldn't have been allowed to own a gun, even though he loved guns. So he was a self-aware psychopath. He believed, as I believe, that people with mental illnesses shouldn't be allowed to own guns because of people like him, people that turn into monsters. He told you he was a monster in high school and continued to tell you he was a monster. We went all over it. All right? I just, and I'm sick of this. He knew he was a product of a failed system. No, the system failed everybody that died and got shot. That they didn't put this person behind bars. That they didn't keep tabs on him. That they didn't keep guns away from someone who was so overtly mentally ill. That is the reality of this situation. As the thunder rolls in the back, I don't know if you can hear that, guys. That's good old Oneana telling you the truth. And it's a damn shame because this guy should have never been around guns and this tragedy should not have happened. With that being said, guys, you know I'm doing 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6, 7 videos a day on numerous topics. You really got to see The Cancer Story Rocks, Joe Tippins, and Fen Benzadol to believe it. One of my more underwatched videos that I've done. I did a couple updates on the Linda Collins Smith case. Of course, we've been concentrating on El Paso and Ohio, but we're going to get back to Epstein today. I think we're going to do another Epstein Black Book AMA in a little bit, so stay tuned for that. I'm very much looking forward to it, and we're at the forefront of Bohemian Grove, Bilderberg, Nexium, the election in 2020, Russiagate, yeah, as if that's a real thing, and much more. So if you're not subbed, join the Burmese Brigade today. Share this on social media. Thumbs this video up. It helps me a ton, guys. And if you can, I also got a crypto address. It'll be in there for Bitcoin. But we're doing it one way and one way only. With the GoFundMe, there's no Patreon. There's no secret Skype sessions. I'm not a subscribe star. I'm not doing bonus material. I give everything away for free because I don't think that information should have a cap on it. And that's why you can go to my page and check out all my documentaries and my documentaries playlist for free as well. So if you can help me financially, we're 20 days into it. We got about 11 days to make up a little less than half of the goal. So I'm trying to do it. I think we're going to get there. Thank you so much, and I will see you all on the flip side.